Hello there, right, we're back after the long break. So, the final film on this subject is Dementia, Alzheimer's, Shamanic. Right, full Shamanic on this one. So before I even get into it, I need to say this, which is that if you are the supporter or carer for a person with these illnesses, it's very important that you have methods of detoxing available to you. And the best thing really is the best quality water you can get. Water that has not got tea or anything else in it, because the thing is, if the water is just water, then it literally draws the toxins out of your body. As soon as you add something to the water, its power to draw the toxins out is vastly reduced. Well worth bearing in mind. Best water you can get. Right, okay then, so the first one is root causes. So nothing is as it seems. We know that from shamanism. That's the axiom which underpins everything really. So when it comes to causes, we're talking about societies which are deeply dysfunctional. We're talking about Western societies. I'm not saying this doesn't exist in other societies, but you're going to see it is its worst in these societies. And there are other cultures where there is so much support within the community that it is possible to care for a person with these illnesses within the community. They say it takes a village to raise a child. I would say it takes a village to help a person through their end of life, through one of these cognitive decline illnesses. If you haven't got a village, if you're trying to do it with a nuclear family, you're really asking too much of that nuclear family. If you're trying to do it on your own, or just you and a partner, I'm sorry, but it's not realistic. And that's why there is a proliferation of care homes in the countries where the community is basically fractured and broken beyond repair. If you're living in the life, traditional society, the village, everyone knows everyone else, different story. But you see what it comes down to, the reason why it's devolved into care homes is because the amount of inner resources that are required are so huge. I took my mum out of the care home twice, and each time I was an idiot to do it really, because all I proved was how completely beyond my capacity the task at hand was. And this is why when people work in care homes, they have a shift. At the end of the shift, they go home and they do something else, even if the only thing they can do is to watch the TV with a big slice of pizza on their lap, if that's all they can do. The thing is, they get a break. People need a break. This is so important. It's not something one can take on fully in the way we perhaps might like to. And I remember going with my partner to the Citizens Advice Bureau at that time, and it was nothing to do with me, it's to do with her. And the CAB guy took one look at me and asked me a couple of questions, and he just laid it on the line. He says, "You have no idea how this will affect you if you end up taking this on as one or even as two people." So that's the answer. Takes a village to the end of life, and if not, then care home, nursing home most likely will be required at a certain point. And it's to do with what's been done to society. So we do live in a society which is effectively run by insanity. I think most of us have woken up to this fact now, so that's got a lot to do with what I'm talking about. If you live in a culture where sanity prevails, you don't need any of the things I'm going to say to you next. Right. So yeah, it's a bit okay. So the next thing I need to say, there's 2 points in the journey. These are not guaranteed to happen, but they're likely. First of all, the person in their end of life process may end up cursing, swearing, and being very vicious and vindictive with the power of their word, literally using the power of their word to inflict as much harm as possible. I would say this is very likely to happen in most cases. If it doesn't happen in your case, whoa, you are so lucky. Next one is actual physical violence. And last night I was guided to a particular Korean TV show where a woman is defending a woman who basically hit her husband. So he had dementia. She hit him because he provoked her beyond, way beyond reason. And she ended up, after all those years of taking all the blows, finally lashing back. And she found herself on a charge of attempted murder. So that's how sane society can be. Society can be so sane that the person that is being abused for years might actually end up on an attempted murder charge for finally lashing out on one occasion. That's what we're dealing with, just so you know. That's why it's so important to realise all the implications I'm saying. Like the last one, this is the hardest of all. This is when they don't recognise you anymore, and I have to say, thank you, Mum, that never happened. Even when what she looked like was inconceivable to walk into the home and to see what she looked like. Nonetheless, there was always that the head would jerk back, the eyes would flash on, and it's like, he's here. Right, I need to mention this. When a person is going through these cognitive decline, end-of-life illnesses, the issue is that it's rather like for a baby. For a baby, you leave a baby alone for 10 minutes, crying in a cot. That baby's in no time. That's an infinite ocean of time as far as that baby's concerned. That's forever. For the ignorant parent that does it, it's like, I say 10 minutes. Not as far as that baby's concerned. Well, it's the same thing as far as the end-of-life person is concerned. It might only have been 24 hours. It might only have been a week. It might have only been 2 hours. Doesn't cut any ice with them as far as they're concerned. They've been abandoned for an inconceivable period of time. So that's one of the reasons why they might curse you out. You bastard, how dare you leave me alone for so long? These are the kind of things we have to deal with. Yes, you can see how important everything I said about the care is. So let me go, what's it all about? The conclusion I've come to about this whole end-of-life journey with cognitive decline is, if the person has been unable to deal with their own journey, they've not had any therapeutic processes, they've not worked things through on their own, if they've been in denial and in resistance and in judgment and condemnation of other people, and it's everybody else's fault. We all know these people. The people that have been living the blame game in the closing decades of their lives, they are the most likely to end up with an illness like this. Because really what these illnesses are all about is they are a way that the person gets to do what they didn't do. So if you've worked hard on your own journey in this life, while you're compos mentis, while you're with it, you'll be one of the lucky ones that passes from this life fully coherent, because you'll have earned it. All those years you spent working on your issues, you've earned it. But for the people who completely dodged the whole thing, and particularly were in denial about all the shit they did to other people when they were younger, they are the most likely to get these kind of illnesses. The most likely. Really important. I'll say it once more. The most likely. Oh, it's a big one, isn't it? Yeah. So, in the case of my mum, the shingles was the physical pain, the inconceivable agony. So, in many, many times in her life, she was very, very harsh and judgmental to people that were suffering pains that she couldn't even begin to conceive of. And the way that all worked out with a karmic process is she then had what for her was something that was unbearably painful, and she was put on a lot of really nasty, dirty drugs, including gabapentin, a particularly foul one in my opinion. And they didn't work, so she took these drugs and they basically didn't work. She was still in agony regardless. So all that physical agony that she was in was actually part of her end-of-life journey, whereby literally what was going on with this is also the severe weight loss. This was literally all the toxicity was being burnt out of her. in that last 18 months to 2 year period. So 8.5 years of gradual cognitive decline, roughly 18 months of that process happening. What a big thing to deal with that was. And then as that started to finally, after about a year, started to diminish, the last 6 months of her life, the diagnosis of Alzheimer's had been well established by that point, no question about it whatsoever. It was completely obvious what was happening. As that started to diminish, then the next thing is you've got the falling. And when I went to visit her in the different hospital wards that I went to visit her, because let me put it this way, she had more than one fall. And I looked around the room. Most of the people in that ward, they had a little symbol, which is a symbol of somebody falling. They were mostly people of what we would say advanced age that were repetitive fallers. Can you imagine what this is like to deal with as a carer, as a supporter? Wow, is that hard. So you've got all that to deal with. So be aware that falling is part of the picture, which is going to include injuries and including severe injuries, so there's all that as well. So you can see how all this fits in too. But the really big picture shamanically is this is a person withdrawing from their... Now this is a really hard thing to explain. A big problem about human beings, generally speaking, is, and it's good in some ways, but we've got such an attachment to being alive that when we feel the game is almost over, that brings up all the residual resistance in that person they might not even have been aware of. So the whole thing is all about resistance. Anyone who's done a significant amount of work with plant medicines is not just doing themselves a favour, they're doing the favour to all the people that may end up being their carers and supporters, because they've done all this work in advance. Can you imagine how helpful that's going to be for them and all those in their orbit? Because you understand this now. There's an orbit of toxicity. The closer you are into that person at the end of life, the more you are going to be affected by that, unless you take steps and use shamanic and other practices to clear yourself. You create ceremonies to clear yourself. Don't allow yourself to have all that stuff dragging you down. Brilliant. Yeah, really strong, isn't it? Right. Let's have a look at those notes again. Where am I up to with all this? Yeah, so we know the society is insane. We know the root causes. Right, so here's another big one. You see, we're living in a society. There's so much insanity in our society. So in a traditional society, the people that have been alive longest would have a title. They'd be called elders. People would go to the elders for advice. And that's how it's supposed to be. But particularly my mother's generation, she actually had the power. She had a very powerful spirit, my mother, but she was brought up in the white heat of modernism. So you can look all this up. There's traditional, there's modernism, and there's postmodernism. So she's brought up in modernism. So modernism completely denied all human talents, such as shaman, priest, priestess, witch, healer, light worker. It was all denied. There was no option. So she never developed any of her talents because it wasn't frowned upon. It was utterly ridiculed. So we've had all these generations of people coming to the end of life, and their natural gifts to be elders has been taken away from them. They've been thrown on the scrap heap. People in care homes have actually been thrown on the scrap heap. That's what it's all about. People who get these diseases, that's what's been done to them, been thrown on the scrap heap of our society, and they're regarded to be of no value and just a bloody nuisance, actually. So that's all part of the picture as well, you see. Can you imagine how that affects people? Whereas what they're meant to be doing is they're meant to be of service to the younger ones. And we're just starting to get the new generations reaching the point where they manage to step out of modernism. There's been postmodernism, which is another disease, I would actually say, and people are aware of community and all the rest of it. People living in communities are not going to be having the same issues, particularly if they've got the different generations in that community. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be amazing for them. But this is the situation we've got in society. So this is all part of the picture. So what I notice in care homes, they're fed the most toxic food possible, sugar at all possible opportunities, as much as possible to stuff into them. And then the other thing is they sit, this is a really big one, inactivity, sitting or lying without moving. That's a death sentence, frankly. And I learned this many years ago from the Rastafarians. They have this expression, that you keep on moving, that you don't stop moving, which means I'm always on the go. That's what we're meant to be as human beings. We're meant to be in a state of kinetic movement, not a state of static disintegration. So they don't move. The other thing you notice about them is they scarcely even breathe. Their breathing becomes so light it's almost like they're scarcely even breathing at all. That's the ultimate death sentence. I've said this so many times. Look after your water intake, look after your food intake, but above and beyond all those, look after your air intake. Breathe clean air every time you get a chance. Deep breathe as often as you can remind yourself to do so. These all help. When I was visiting my mother in their care home, when it was the far away care home, the hour-and-a-half drive, oh God, how I hated that. Well, what kept me going there, I did the entire hour and a half. I had a very special breathing practice, which is deep breathing. You can't do the pranayama, deep breathing, because it's not safe, but I developed my own method of doing it which works. I did a special deep breathing method which didn't put me at risk at all as a driver, and it meant that I was actually able to cope with the entire experience of all those visits. It really helps. So deep breathing before you go in to be with this person, such an important thing for you to do, really helps. So yeah, anything else? I think I'm about running out of steam on this. With diet and lifestyle choices, yeah, we look at that to some extent. Neurogenesis. So neurogenesis, cognitive decline is reversible. Lion's mane and other mushroom protocols do work. There are certain foods which are so good to address the issues of cognitive decline diseases. Eggs, omelette, mushroom omelette, blueberries, all soft fruit. No sugar, no junk food, no chemicals, no pharmaceuticals. It's all pretty much no-brainer stuff, isn't it? You can work it all out by just looking at what you can do that's healthy and what you don't do that's not healthy. These are all the ways that we deal with it. But as I say, the biggest one is deal with your shit. Deal with your issues. That makes such a difference. And have the compassion to understand that this person wasn't able to, which is why they're going through this hell, which is what it is. Effectively, it's, that's where you get your hell. You get your hell before you die if you're in a state of profound resistance, unequivocally. So yeah, on that really cheery note, I think I'm pretty much wrung out from this series of 4 films. If there's anything really crucial, I will simply add it to the comments. And so I want to say to you is, if you're going through stuff like this, reach out to someone you love and allow them to help you. Don't rebuff their offer of help, because they might just want to listen to you, look at you face to face, maybe hold you if you want that. Really important. And yeah, this is all a really big journey that we're all on, the human race. It's a tidal wave. Globally, there's a tidal wave of increase of these illnesses, as we literally are having the most phenomenal purge. That's what's going on. We're having a purge of the human race, and it's happening within individuals, and it's happening with the race as a whole. We do live in extraordinary times, don't we? All the love to you, and thank you for being with me and bearing with me on this journey, which is somewhat longer than I had expected as I look at the clock and see, oh my goodness me, 19 minutes and 14 seconds. All the love to you. Cheers for now.